It is time for another Lumineth Lowdown, and today we're going to be talking about the Vanari Dawn Riders, the new, I guess you could just say, cavalry elements of the Lumineth Realm Lords. It looks like they look to directly replace the Silver Helms. Now, when talking about the lore for them, Games Workshop kind of talks about that early knowledge of the Illyrian Reavers, the Silver Helms, and the Ithilmar barbed horses and everything. Let me see here. It says that the Hyles of the long lost time rode the finest horses in all the world, and a kernel of this glorious past yet lingered in the ancestral memory of the Lumineth. The Vanari Dawn Riders represent a Haitian reflection of that legacy, inspired by the teachings of Teclis, who knew firsthand the quality of the horse-riding cavalry and sought to encourage his replication among the Lumineth. So interesting that it says Teclis knew firsthand. Teclis was sickly up until the point that he was actually taken in by the Tower of Hoeth, and he learned alchemy, and he learned all the means to create things like the Potion of Charoi and such to really rejuvenate his, I guess you could say, constitution. That's always kind of been the big difference between Tyrion and Teclis. Tyrion is, of course, the martial, glowing, physical representation of Anarian, while as Teclis is supposed to kind of be that shrewd, calculated, measured, mental portion of Anarian. And when you look at the both of them, you can see the physically different, or you can see how physically different they both are. With Teclis being just a little bit more sickly, especially the way it's described in the Tyrion and Teclis trilogy. They really drive that home, especially up until the point that he learns alchemy and he kind of comes back from that just dilapidated youth. But as we take a look at these guys, they look pretty damn awesome. I think one of the biggest things I'm excited about with the Lumineth Realm Lords, and it's the same way that they do with every single army that they ever launch, right? They just show you, hey, here's pretty much like the Games Workshop standard edition look. Here's our Ultramarines look for the Lumineth Realm Lords. But once you get the book, you start to crack into it. That spine, when it cracks, ooh, it's like the best feeling in the world. You get to kind of take a look at some of the different painting schemes they have in mind, and I can't wait to see some of the other ones they have in mind for the Realm Lords, because so far they've just been such awesome, dynamic, beautiful models with these big, huge, large open surfaces like armor plating here, here, and here. You can see that this is probably going to be a lot of fun to paint in a lot of different ways. I'm excited to see how they really kind of did that. But for this lowdown, it kind of covered more the actual physical design of the model, what they were like inspired by, how they really approached it, and how this is kind of the medium weight cavalry versus, say, like, you know, your Dragon Prince, which would be more, I guess, of a heavy cab option. And I guess it is a heavy cab option. Now, I wonder if that means that we will start to see a different cavalry option in the weeks to come for the Lumineth Realm Lords, and I am kind of excited as to what we get. But we can see that they're kind of repeating motif here with the runic mandala, as it is called, across their the barding on their horses. And when we kind of take a look at this across the 7th and the 6th edition, there's no real 8th edition rune entry in the High Elf Army book, but we kind of see a lot of these runes kind of coming out, or at least being manipulated slightly, right? Like, so we can see Elthrai, which is doom, inexorable, fate, hope. And we can see it right here, but kind of tilted on its axis. A lot of these runes have that kind of root in the old elven runes of the world that was. And I think that's kind of interesting. It's not just simply a one-to-one conversion. Like, this looks a lot like Draroir, right? We take a look at Draroir, not Draroir. Draroir, remembrance, memory, the strength of stone. But when we look at its 6th edition iteration, we see something a little more akin to what we're going to be hopefully seeing in the Lumineth Realm Lords. So we'll probably be seeing a whole different kind of explanation of a lot of these runes. There's, of course, a big line through the new one, as it were. As you can see, that big old line right there. And like I said, some of these are morphed versions of the other ones. Okay, there's your straight up Draroir right there. This one here is duplicate of this one there. I knew that it was Draroir somewhere, but I couldn't remember exactly where. Then Senthoi, unity, loyalty, broken promise, is very similar to this right here. So you get a very similar runic interpretation through a lot of these. Some of them seem to take a lot of the same elements and just simply replace a squiggly line there or a straight line here. Like, this one looks like a current one, But as I kind of look through this list, it kind of looks like Lumineth, but then it kind of looks like some of these other ones kind of pushed into it. So I think that that's what they're kind of doing, is taking this heavy influence of the runic mandala and pushing the 6th edition, the 7th edition runes, which you guys are seeing right now, into the Age of Sigmar in a kind of original way. I don't know if that meant that these are like a copy of Lord of the Rings runes or something like that, because usually they do this because it makes it easier for them to copyright, but we'll kind of see. Hopefully it's just a narrative kind of approach they're taking, like, hey, rather than just using the same old runes, let's kind of turn these on their head and kind of change them up a little bit, which again, I'm pretty cool with that. That's kind of an awesome approach. But taking a look here further into the lore, I'm trying to find out where it talks about Teclian and Tyrion. Okay, so it says, let's just read this whole paragraph. The icons on the unit's shields, however, are intended to be something more akin to the personal pageantry of the knight carrying them. These often include stylized sun and phoenix symbols, though formerly center-aligned between the Haitian gods, a more militaristic Tyrionic influence is clearly prevalent. So what that's saying, obviously, is that everything in the Lumineth Realm Lords is about striking a balance. And, you know, if you're going to represent Tyrion, then you have to, in equal measure, represent Teclis. And you see this. You see, this is the representation of Tyrion, with the moon representing Teclis. Because right here, this is further emphasized by the majestic phoenix design on the Dawn Rider's fluttering banner, though Neil also ensured that Teclian moons were commonplace on the miniatures to maintain the balance between the two Lumineth deities. We still have not gotten anything on Tyrion, but we're starting to get more and more kind of little whispers about him, at least. Like I said, at least he's now being outright mentioned as a twin god of Haish. He's being mentioned as part of the aesthetic to this army, as part of the culture of the Lumineth Realm Lords. So you see at least that he hopefully is coming with this. He's not going to be just some sort of disembodied, oh yeah, he's a great guy over there. And it seems to be that Tyrion has almost taken that direct role of Assyrian. You know, he is represented by a phoenix, by a glowing chalice here, by the sun, very Assyrian-based. At the same time, we see that it looks like Teclis has almost taken the role of Lilith, in that he's represented by moons, and there's a lot of magic and, of course, you know, wizardry bound to his name. So it's interesting how they've taken Assyrian and Lilith and kind of pushed them down into Tyrion and Teclis. But we will hopefully see what this means. And this is just kind of me speculating based off of what I'm kind of seeing right now. With such a heavy emphasis on balance, I wonder if they'll do something interesting with the actual army rules for the battle tome for the Lumineth Realm Lords. I'd be very interested to see if they did something that wasn't a conventional battle line. You can't just say, okay, well, I'm going to take any 2 battle line. I wonder if they're going to say something like, okay, if you take one battle line aligned with the Tyrionic side of the Pantheon, or Tyrionic side of the roster, you have to take one battle line that is representative of Teclis or Teclian. So I wonder if they're going to have to force you, the player, to strike a balance in that you have to choose one or the other, or you have to choose both at the same time, so you do keep that balance within the army. Now, that could be just completely game-breaking and force you to have a pretty skewed and crappy all-around list, which can't emphasize any one thing or another. So I kind of hope that's not the case, but I wonder if they're going to play with that notion of balance being such a huge part of the Lumineth Realm Lord kind of culture, as it were. And I guess I'm also really excited for the prospect of a potentially all-Cav Lumineth Realm Lord army, and probably one of the very few all-Cav options that you have available to you in Age of Sigmar. I mean, you can absolutely do it with the Stormcast Eternals, focusing very heavily on the Dracoths and the like antelope deer creatures, which I can't remember the name off the top of my head. The Slaves of Darkness have their Chaos Knights, and then you get the Varangard, but we have yet to get a really true knight-based faction. And that's going to be a speculation video I'm going to be doing here in the next week or two for Age of Sigmar, is a speculation on a knight-based faction using the Grail Knights of Old Bretonia and the Blood Dragon Vampires of the world that was, as a kind of blueprint for my idea for a really cool speculation. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. We'll continue to cover the Lumineth lowdowns. It says down here that we'll be getting a new reveal. In our next installment, we'll be revealing even more about the Lumineth. So we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. I think they're going to be doing this every other week, much similar to the same way that they did with the Sisters of Battle. The Sisters of Battle, we really didn't get much of an update for, especially in the beginning portions, until it got closer and closer to that eventual release time. But I'm hoping for a Lumineth Realm Lord release sometime here in the summer, but we'll see what Games Workshop has planned. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one, and take care.